inside her. The healer did not answer immediately. She traced her fingers along Lan's palm, slow and deliberate, as if reading a map. She looked into Lan's eyes with a lingering depth. "There are two forces tied to this child," she said. "One holds love. One holds something far older than love." Her voice carried no fear, only certainty. "This child will reveal everything, whether you wish for it or not." Lan felt the ground shift again. She returned home, her steps unsteady. The air smelled of cooking rice and rain-soaked wood. Min stood near the window. Hui sat near the doorway. Both looked up when she entered. Two identical faces. Two identical expressions. Yet only one of them felt warm. That night, the wind rose like a restless breath. The shutters rattled softly. Lan lay in bed, her hands resting on her stomach. She listened to the house breathe. Min slept beside her, his breathing steady and calm. But somewhere deeper in the house, another breath answered. Low, barely audible, as if someone was standing very still in the darkness, waiting. She rose quietly, careful not to wake Min. Her bare feet touched the cool wooden floor. She stepped into the hallway. The house was dark except for a thin line of moonlight seeping through the far window. Dust floated in the beam like tiny drifting worlds. She felt drawn forward. Her heartbeat guided her more than her thoughts. At the end of the corridor stood Hui. He was not moving. He was simply there, as though he had always been part of the night. He looked at her and she felt a pull deep in her chest, a force older than her marriage, older than her understanding of love. She opened her lips to speak, but he raised a hand, stopping her without a word. His gaze dropped to her stomach, then to her eyes. In that moment, Lan understood something that she had not allowed herself to see. The child was not an accident. The child was not confusion. The child was a choice someone had already made. Her world tightened around her like a rope drawn slowly. Min stirred in the bedroom behind her. The floor creaked, a turning of a body in sleep. Lan and Hui did not look away from each other. Both knew a moment was rising, a truth about to be spoken. But it did not arrive. The house held its breath. The night stretched. And the world waited, suspended, on the edge of something that had already begun, but had not yet revealed its face. Lan did not know how long she stood there, only that the night felt endless. The wind outside had quieted, but inside the house, everything was still too loud. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought that pressed against her mind like a hand closing slowly. Hui stepped back from the hallway, as though he wished to speak but refused to break the silence. His retreat was slow, deliberate, and without fear. He walked toward the small room at the end of the house, the room he almost never entered. Lan felt compelled to follow. The floorboards beneath her feet sounded like whispers. It felt as though the house itself was watching. The door to the room was half open. She pushed it gently and stepped inside. The room was dim, lit only by a thin line of moonlight that spilled across the floor. On the walls hung old photographs of the twins as children. Two boys with identical faces, but even then, their eyes were not the same. Min's eyes had always been gentle, like water that reflected light. Hui's eyes were deeper, like wells that hid entire histories beneath the surface. In the corner lay a wooden box. Hui knelt beside it. He opened it slowly. Inside were small belongings. A child's wooden horse, a ribbon faded with age, and a portrait of a woman Lan had never seen. Her hair was long and wild, her cheeks strong, her gaze intense. She did not look frightened or sad. She looked fierce. Lan felt something shift in her chest. She stepped closer. Hui lifted the portrait and held it toward the moonlight. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low and steady. "She was our mother." Lan listened, silent, her breath held behind her ribs. "She loved our father," Hui continued, "but she feared what she had given birth to. Two sons, identical faces, one heart that belonged to love, one that belonged to something stronger than love." His fingers brushed the edge of the frame. She believed souls are not always divided equally. She believed one of us carried something she could not understand. Lon felt her throat tighten. She left, Hui said. There are some things a mother cannot confront. Lon looked at him. She understood without needing explanation. His presence, the weight in his gaze, the quiet intensity. He had lived all his life knowing he was the one people feared. He set the portrait down gently. She came back once, he said. Before she died. She looked at us both. And she said one thing. His voice did not shake, yet something inside it felt sharpened. She said that one day, one woman would stand between us. And she said that woman would carry the answer to which brother the world would follow. Lon felt her heartbeat rise, deep and forceful. He looked at her then. His gaze was not demanding. It was not pleading. It was simply waiting. Not for forgiveness. Not for understanding. But for acknowledgement. Lon stepped back. Her hand moved involuntarily to her stomach again, as if protecting something fragile from something ancient. A sound broke the stillness. The soft creak of a door. Min stood at the entrance of the room. His expression was quiet, unreadable, yet his presence filled the space. He walked inside slowly, his eyes moving from the portrait on the floor to Lon and then to his twin brother. No one spoke. The air thickened, as if time itself had tightened around them. Min's voice was calm when it finally came. It is time, he said. Hui did not argue. His jaw tightened only slightly, but his silence held acceptance. Lon felt something shift, not in the room but in the story of her life. As if she had crossed a threshold she could never return from. Min reached out his hand toward her. Not to pull. Not to demand. But to offer. Lan's breath shuddered. The child inside her moved, a slow, deliberate motion, as though responding to something unseen. Hui took a single step forward. Min's hand remained extended. The world seemed to balance on the edge of a choice that had been waiting long before Lon ever knew she was part of it. The night did not break. The moment did not resolve. Nothing ended. The house simply held them, suspended in the quiet before something irreversible. Lon stood between them. Her breath slow and uneven, as if the air around her had grown too heavy to carry. The child shifted again inside her, this time with a stronger motion, almost as if responding to the silent tension filling the room. Min's hand remained outstretched, patient and steady. Had always been steady. Steady when he held her. Steady when he promised a life built on trust and care. Steady like the earth beneath her feet. Hui's presence was different. He did not reach for her. He did not need to. His existence alone felt like an invisible cord, tied not to her hand or her body, but somewhere deeper, where names and vows could not reach. Lon took a step back. Her heart felt divided, not between love and desire, but between two truths that refused to let go of her. Min's voice broke the silence again, gentle but firm. Lon, he said, you do not need to speak. Just come with me. Rest. You are tired. His voice had always been a shelter. But before she could move, Hui spoke. Rest will not change what is already in motion. His tone was quiet, but it filled the room. Min turned to him. His expression still calm, though his eyes held something that had been waiting for years to surface. You promised we would not bring her into this. Hui held his gaze. I did not. Fate did. The words struck something deep inside Lon, like a bell ringing in a locked room. Min stepped closer to her, slow enough not to startle. Lon saw a shadow of pain in his eyes. A sorrow that had lived long before she entered their lives. I tried to protect you, Min said softly. From this. From all of this. Lan's throat tightened. She felt hot tears filling her eyes but none fell. Hui's gaze remained steady. She was never meant to be protected from it. She was meant to reveal it. Lon looked between them, her heartbeat loud in her ears. The child moved again. Stronger. As if the tiny life inside her was not afraid of this moment, but part of it. Min lowered his hand. For a moment, the room felt impossibly quiet. Then Min spoke again, this time not to Lon but to his brother. "Do you remember what Mother said the night she returned?" Hui's eyes flickered. "Only slightly, but enough." "She said that one of us was born to love," Min murmured. "And one of us was born to claim." The words settled like dust in sunlight, visible, undeniable. Lon felt something cold move through her spine. Hui did not deny it. He simply looked at Lon with a gaze that held no apology, no hesitation. Min stepped back, as if the distance between them was necessary now. Lon felt the house shift, not physically but in meaning. This home she had entered with trust had always been built on something deeper, older, and heavier than she had ever imagined. Min looked at her with eyes that trembled just once. "Lon," he said, "when the time comes, you will know which of us stands with your heart, and which of us stands with your destiny." His voice broke slightly, only in the smallest breath. Hui's expression did not change. Lon felt her knees weaken. The child moved again, a slow, unmistakable turning beneath her skin. The room seemed to darken around them, though the moon had not shifted. A sudden knock at the front door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. The kind that did not belong to a villager, or a passing traveler, or anyone who needed permission to enter. All 3 of them turned toward the sound. No one spoke. No one stepped forward. The house held. The knock did not repeat. It lingered in the air like a presence. A silent announcement that whoever stood outside was not in a hurry, and did not need to be invited. Lan's pulse thudded behind her ears. Min glanced once at her, then at Hui. No signal passed between them, and yet there was understanding, long-formed and wordless. Hui stepped forward first. He did not move with caution. He moved with certainty, as if he already knew who waited on the other side. Lon followed slowly, one hand against the wall to steady herself. Min walked beside her, close enough to protect, yet careful not to touch without her choosing. The house felt colder now. The air had shifted into something heavier, as though the night itself had entered with that single knock. Hui reached the door. He did not open it. He placed his hand on the wood, as if listening to something only he could hear. Lon watched his shoulders rise and fall in one slow, measured breath. Then he slid the door open. The night outside was dark, but not empty. A figure stood in the doorway. Wrapped in a long gray coat that seemed to swallow the shape of the body within it. The figure's head was covered with a hood, but their posture was calm. "Come." Lon felt her skin tighten, as though her instincts stepped forward before her mind could. The figure lifted their head slowly. Under the hood was an old woman's face. Weathered skin. Eyes clouded but sharp. The kind of eyes that remembered everything they had ever seen. Her gaze moved past Hui, past Min, and settled directly on Lon. Not on her face. Not on her eyes. On her stomach. Lan's breath caught in her chest. Min spoke first quietly. "You should not be here." The old woman did not answer him. She stepped forward, just enough so that the moonlight touched her face, showing the pale scars that lined her jaw like old writing. Her voice was rough but steady. "It is time," she said. The same words Min had spoken earlier. But from her they felt heavier. Final. Irreversible. Hui did not move away from the doorway. He stood like a gate that had been built precisely for this moment. Min's shoulders stiffened, though his voice remained controlled. "You left this family. You chose to vanish. You do not decide anything now." The old woman's eyes turned to him. There was no softness in them, only knowledge. "I did not leave," she said. "I waited." Lon felt her breath tremble. The old woman finally looked at her clearly. "My child," she said, though her voice carried no affection, only recognition. "You carry the bloodline that chooses." Lon tried to step back, but her feet would not move. The old woman's gaze did not shift away. "In your womb is not one life," she said, "but a decision." one that cannot be undone once the child takes its first breath. Min closed his eyes briefly, as if bracing for something he had always feared. Hui remained still, though something flickered faintly in his expression, a shadow of emotion no one could name. Lan's voice finally returned, though it emerged as a whisper. "What decision?" The old woman stepped closer, her presence closing the distance like a quiet storm. She raised one hand, gnarled and trembling, not to touch Lan, but to gesture between the two brothers. "One of them," she said, "will become a father, and the other will become something far greater than a man." The room seemed to shrink. Min exhaled slowly. Hui's jaw tightened. Lan's hand pressed against her stomach protectively. The old woman lowered her hand. "The child," she said, "will choose." No one spoke. Not Min. Not Hui. Not Lan. The old woman stepped back toward the open doorway. She paused once, her figure framed by the night. "When the first cry is heard," she said, "the truth will show itself." Then she turned and walked into the darkness, without waiting for a response, without looking back. The door remained open. The wind entered, cold, and rushed. Lan stood in the center of the house, her hand still on her stomach, her heart beating too loudly. Min looked at her. Hui looked at her. Identical eyes. Different worlds inside them. And the night waited. Silent. Heavy. Unending. Lan felt the world closing in around her. The house that once held warmth now felt like a crossroads where fate had been quietly waiting for years. She looked at Min. She looked at Hui. Two men who shared a face, a history, and a bond she had never fully understood. But she understood herself now. She placed her hand over her heart and breathed once, slow and deep, until the trembling in her chest stilled. "Come with me," she said. Neither of the brothers spoke. They simply followed as she stepped outside into the quiet night. The moon hung high above, pale and watchful, lighting the worn path that led away from the house. Lan walked to the old shrine near the banyan tree, the one villagers rarely visited anymore. Time had chipped away at its stone edges, but the air around it was heavy with memory. She turned to face them. Min's eyes were full of pain and love that wanted nothing more than to keep her safe. Hui's eyes held no fear, only a certainty that seemed carved from something ancient. Both were waiting. Lan spoke softly, but her voice carried. "All of this began long before I came here. Before either of you knew love. Before I knew what it meant to choose." Her hand moved to her stomach again, but this time not in fear. In acceptance. "When the child is born, the truth will come. But the child will not choose for us. I will choose." Min stepped forward, unable to hold his silence any longer. "Lan, if you choose me, I will protect you. I will protect our child. I will give you a life without fear." Hui's voice followed, steady and unwavering. "If you choose me, you will walk a path that does not belong to ordinary lives. I will not offer safety. I will offer purpose." Lan closed her eyes only for a heartbeat. Then she looked at them again. "I choose love." Min's breath broke, almost soundless. But Lan shook her head gently. "Not the love I once believed was enough. Not the love that protects. Not the love that holds." Her gaze moved to Hui. "I choose the love that sees me. The love that does not hide truth. The love that stands unafraid of what is difficult." Hui's stillness shifted, just slightly, like wind moving through deep water. Min bowed his head. No anger. Only sorrow. And respect. "I always knew," he whispered. Lan stepped toward him, touched his hand once, not to keep him, but to honor him. "You were my peace," she said. "And I will always be grateful." Then she turned to Hui. "You are the path forward." Hui reached out his hand. Not to claim her, not to bind her, but to stand beside her. Lan took it. Together, they turned toward the darkness beyond the village, where the road stretched long and unmarked. Min remained beneath the banyan tree, watching them go. The wind lifted his hair, carrying away the life he had cherished, and the man he had shared everything with. He did not call out. He did not follow. He simply stood and understood. The moon was bright. The night was quiet. And the world continued forward. Lan Hui and the child she carried stepped into a future unknown, but chosen. Not by prophecy. Not by fate. But by the strength of a single heart choosing the life it would live. And the story ended there. Not with certainty. But with a beginning.